Hey everybody, Coach Steve here, and today I want to talk to you about running shoes. And the question I get asked most are, what kind of running shoes do you use and why do you choose them? So the first thing I like is I like a light shoe. All these shoes are very light. Number two is I like a shoe that's flexible. Here's a trail running shoe, and it's still pretty flexible all the way to the Skechers Bionic that I could basically fold in half. I also, like I said, lightweight. These things are very, very light, so I look for a lightweight shoe. And if you notice, these shoes don't have a lot of stability parts in them, so they move pretty freely, all of them. So that's the first thing I look for. If you're gonna buy shoes, buy them in the afternoon. Your feet swell, and you're gonna get actually a better sizing. Pick the socks that you like to run in. Do you like thick socks or thin socks? Take those socks or buy a few pairs of the socks that you're gonna use. But let's just talk about some of the shoes I'm running in. First, let's talk about street. So on the street right now, I've been running a lot in these Brooks Cadence. What they have is they have what's called a 4mm heel drop, meaning that the heel is 4mm higher than the toe, versus a shoe like the Skechers Bionic is actually a 0 heel drop, flat like your foot, or the Ultras that are 0 heel drop and they're flat like your foot. The other thing is that I like, when I'm racing, I like the Newtons, because the Newtons actually have these little lugs. Inside the lugs, there's a little hard piece of plastic and it bounces back, gets some recoil. I actually feel faster in these shoes, and I actually have, here's a Newton cut in half, and I could explain that in another video. Another good trail street shoe that I like is the Saucony Kinvara, nice and light, but it is a very light shoe, so typically I don't run longer than 10 or 13 miles in these. These are kind of my race shoes on the road, and these are kind of my everyday running shoes. I use a minimal shoe like this when I really want to feel the road and get a good feel. So I won't run as long in this though, maybe 6 miles, 4 or 5 miles, that short run, really to get a feel. How am I landing? What's going on with my foot? Remember, the more cushion there is, the slower it really takes for the body to feel what's going on, and it changes the feel of what's going on. Think about it, if you walk barefoot, you feel the ground. Think about how your foot feels on the ground. As you build up that cushion, the foot doesn't get the same feel, so I kind of like being closer to the ground. When I move to trails, I have 2 shoes here that I'd like to show you. I use the Newton Energy, and I use these in my trail races that have steep downhills, because that steep downhill is going to create pounding, and I like to actually get a little bit of that cushioning to absorb the pounding. So these have a 6mm heel to toe drop, but they have a little bit more padding than the Ultras here. If I get in that really kind of mountainy terrain where I need traction, or rocky and sandy, a lot of times I'll go to these Ultras, and you can just see the difference in the bottom. See that traction? That's great traction. So, and they're actually pretty light, and for a trail shoe, very, very flexible. So you have lots of choices. I just don't run in one shoe. I try a bunch of shoes all the time. I'm trying to see how they feel, what's going on in my running, and because I'm a Chi running instructor, I'm always trying to feel what's going on too. What I'd like to suggest is there's no one shoe for any person. There's multiple shoes. You got to go out and try what works for you. What works for me though might not work for you. So I want you to go to a shoe store and try on a bunch of different brands. As you can see, I'm not brand loyal to just one brand. I run in different brands all the time. I like to see what's going on and get a feel, and I'll do some reviews and let you know what I think about each one of these shoes. But all these shoes here have over 100 miles on each one running, and this thing probably has 500 or 600 miles on. I've been running in these a lot lately. So just think, when you're going out to buy shoes, ask your friends what they like, try those on, and then try some other brands on, see what's happening with your foot. One last thing I want to point out is shoes are really moving towards a wider toe box, and if you think about your foot, it kind of goes narrow to wider. So I like a little room in my shoes. Buy your shoes a half to full size big, so your foot expands while you run. Give it some room to grow, to spread out in your shoe. But I'm looking for a little bit wider toe box. Skechers has that. This Newton has a little bit wider toe box. So you can see they're getting away from these more tight toe boxes. Lots of stuff to discuss. I'm gonna let you chew on that for a little while. If you have any questions, just send me a note. And this is Coach Steve saying, train focused.